Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the Václav Havel Library. My name is Veronika Bednářová. Here with me today is Elita de Klerk. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Elita is the chairperson of the Board of Trustees at the FW de Klerk Foundation, but also a philanthropist, artist, opera and modern art lover, student of psychology, and the advocate for better life for disadvantaged and abused children in South Africa. Welcome. The FW de Klerk Foundation promotes and defends South African Constitution, works for reconciliation, mutual understanding, and national unity, preserves and celebrates the legacy of FW de Klerk, provides information on South African constitutional transformation, and last but not least is the home for the archives and the library of the FW de Klerk. Elita, you were living in South Africa since 1998 in Cape Town, but before you come from Greece, have you always had like part or piece of Africa inside yourself?
In a strange way, yes, because my former husband was born in Uganda, Greek from Uganda. And then we went to, when I married him, we went to live in London, and then his mother was living in Zimbabwe. And then when we went in 1970 for a honeymoon, I met Ian Smith. Remember in those days? And look at, because there's a destiny, Ian Smith's wife, Janet, her sister, Helen, was married to Owen Howard, Minister of Finance of South Africa.
So there was a connection. Do you still remember the very first time when you met FW de Klerk? In London it was?
Yeah, we met. It was an organized dinner to take place with the President-to-be of South Africa. Because again, my former husband was doing business with South Africa. So it was in his interest to get to know all the political leaders. So we went to a restaurant, and I'll never forget the impact this man had on me from day one. Because all of a sudden, you know, I'm a little bit of a spiritual warrior, like dreaming the impossible dream. And I saw another man there, like me, dreaming the impossible dream to change the status of his country. So I wanted to help him. So of course I remember.
Well, the times between 1999 and 1994, where when it all happened, you know, he has served as president, is remembered most for leading South Africa transition from the white minority rule to the first multiracial election in 1994. How was he as a person?
FW was a very private man. You know, he didn't want his soul to be read. But I have a way of going besides behind the scenes. I remember he used to tell me about a dream, about how he was falling to earth, and I took it to my psychotherapist. And the explanation is that Mother Earth was calling him. He needed to find his feminine side. So in other words, use his heart as well.
So was there sort of your European influence?
I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but I, with my strict upbringing, having been married at the age of 18, I became the other woman. Do you understand what's that? So for me, it was a sobering thing because it wasn't done in my vocabulary. And years later, when the press could have crucified me, I thanked the editor and I said, thank you for not crucifying me. And he said, you know, we don't do that. We allow them to crucify themselves.
You know, we all saw on your foundation webpage the last message of FW de Klerk in 2021, when he again, as many times before, apologized for being part of the apartheid. Him being the architect of the end of apartheid, he still apologized for it, and he said since the early 80s, my views changed completely. It was like a conversion. Were you part of that conversion for all those years?
You know
and
what?
In what
Again,
way?
with my being a foreigner, I don't want to put on myself qualities that I didn't see things as South Africans.
You were an outsider, basically.
An outsider. So I could see things clearly. And I remember at the time, because we knew he was dying, he was diagnosed in February, and I said to him, you know what, if you want me to continue your foundation, I need another apology. But you see, this is me who speaks, that I wear my sleeve, my heart on my sleeve. FW was a very private man. And at times in the past, I used to say, but why don't you show this side in the public? He wouldn't.
You personally are known for your support of the local South African culture. You are a painter yourself, you are the patron of the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra and also the Cape Town Opera, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of your great passions, but how do you balance the time between sort of your interests and the community service?
You see, regarding the community service, you need to tackle the community from the bottom up. You can't go to a community and speak to the elders. You need to take ownership. And I've learned that very early on when I was doing a project in a squatter camp, and that I thought at the time that I can go with a checkbook and uplift and I was the community and
just with money, yeah.
And I was traveling next to a person on the plane. So of course, typical me, I started telling him my story. And he said to me, it doesn't work. He was working for BP. He said, you need to go in the community, get hold of the people and make them take ownership of your project. So I know that. It's not very easy.
And it doesn't go fast, it doesn't happen fast.
It doesn't go fast, and then there are egos, politics.
Well, I'm sure when your husband established the foundation, there were also politics going on. But right now, people in South Africa are actually grateful for its existence.
Yeah, but at the time, they were threatened. They thought there was a political comeback. And I remember the conversations we've had, because for him, his country was everything. Saying to him, maybe there I had a bit of an ulterior motive, because all my kids and my grandkids were in London. So I said, what about if you do whatever you do, but from the outside to South Africa? And that's when he founded the Global Leadership Foundation, which is now 24 years old. And he's do you know about it? Absolutely. So it was a Swiss registered company, and then all our paths were going from London. And I think it was a wise thing, because they saw him not as a threat.
But speaking about foundations, how has sort of Václav Havel's legacy influenced you, your work?
Okay. We went through a period in the early 2000s when we started coming to Prague. And then FW became honorary chairman of the Prague Society. And I will never forget the intimate dinners, the people uniting, like the dissidents, you know? There was this, maybe because of my Greekness and my fascination with the civil war in Greece, I made it bigger than it is, but I loved it. I loved the real people and the embracing each other and helping each other. So
you do believe that art can change the society in a way after experience?
Absolutely. And then we had the Forum 2000s that we used to come every year. And it was an amazing experience. Václav Havel and the people he was surrounding himself with a different caliber of people.
Did you have a chance to show him Cape Town as well?
They did come. Yes, they did come.
So, and it's the most favorite part of South Africa for you, is it?
For me, yes, because it fits my needs. You know, I'm a bit of a foreigner, it's more international, and it's a wonderful place. Do you know they were both born the same year?
Yes. Yes.
And
it's not a coincidence. So how can, nowadays maybe talking, how can art and literature and fine arts, culture bridge, how can it encourage empathy? Are there, you know, any particular artists who have impacted maybe your views of democracy and freedom and human rights?
I believe music is very important because even in lunatic asylums, they use for therapy music. But let's go beyond art at this point. There was these two men with great similarities. From 1948, here you had communists. We had from 1948 apartheid. And they both dared to go against the tide. So they were like-minded. Look at the photo you gave me, how you can see the repartee.
Well, you already mentioned that there are many very strong parallels between the Czech and South African history, mainly following the systemic change after 1989. South Africa, however, is now torn by contradiction. So how did your foundation facing it?
Okay, we have, you know, we have many contradictions, but I'm a believer that the pendulum always takes time to swing back where it should be. Last year, it started with a delegation of Afrikaners who wanted to sign a declaration. And they came to ask us if we can be part of this. And we said no, because it's more divisive again. There's no Afrikaners or different tribes. We are all South Africans. Then, this year, another again hiccup about the Afrikaans language. The Afrikaans language is not spoken just by Afrikaners, white people. It's spoken by so many colored and black people. So our executive director, who happens to be an amazing man, went against this and said, this is not the language of the white people. It belongs to all of us. It's Afrikaanse. You know, there's differences. And suddenly, don't forget, I'm not South African. I get a letter from the chairman of the Broederbond. This is another problem. And I remember sitting there and saying, now, what have you done to me? You've left the Greek woman to deal with all of this. But I managed, and everything dissipated.
I have been thinking about you just a few days ago when President Trump said that he will speed up the visas for the white farmers.
Exactly.
Which I'm assuming is also a part of the foundation activities.
We are horrified, and it's lies. It's lies. You see, again, you must go and understand. There's this expropriation without compensation. It's been going on for years, and it's the right thing to be done in the right way. And suddenly, everything went out of proportion. Now Trump is calling the Afrikaners and whoever are treated badly to go to America. But this is wrong.
But we haven't read anything about it in the papers for a few years at all, so it's... So it's another challenge, in other words. It's
another challenge. And today we have the budget.
How can us, sort of, you know, a small country and smallish, contribute to these global conversations of like justice and equality? Is there any recipe for it?
Yeah, I think we all need to interact more truthfully to each other, interact for the ulterior good and not for enrich ourselves, get out of politics and the political games, go for integrity, like the people who were coming at Forum 2000 here. And it was people of a different caliber. I'll never forget how they were. You felt good. You felt good to be part of this race.
Deep, thoughtful.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's very important because we're losing our values.
Well, I should stress out that in 1993, your husband was jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize with Nelson Mandela. However, we were talking before the screening that it was stolen from your house a year after his death. I mean, how are you facing this symbolic loss?
You know what? I was overseas, I came back, and then I discovered my safe was burglared. And a lot of things were missing. And it was a shock, a big shock, that because this thing doesn't have a value. It even writes the name of the person is on. But again, I'm a great believer in God. That was a Tuesday. On Friday of that week, my stepson's partner died from a head-on collision. So it made me put things in perspective and say, you know what?
Just a Nobel Prize?
Yeah.
You were clearly very close to your husband. What keeps you going? How do you remain motivated?
I have to fight my depression, who has been a teacher for me, and I need to avoid the slippery slopes, but I want, you know what I want? I want eventually, I'm getting ready to maybe find an author and contribute to a book about my husband and about the private man, because without him, nothing would have happened.
It would be wonderful to have a book about you and him.
Somebody else must write mine.
Do you have some sort of or what message would you like to share with the Czech Republic audience?
That it's amazing how every time I come here, I feel at home. And today we went for lunch. I forget the name of the place, but it felt like it was in Vienna. And I thought, wow, that's the same feelings I had when I was coming here. It's people who have been, they've suffered, and they remember their suffering, because through their suffering, they have grown up. So I'm grateful for you, people of the Czech Republic. And I want us to remember our suffering too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.